technology to bring everyone in from your location and unify it here into this service so that we can live stream it out to you in all of your homes. I am so grateful for this technology and this way that we continue to connect. This week we are continuing our conversation on our 12 powers, looking at our 12 powers through dyads. Each power combined with yet another power, one being active and one being the supporting power. And so we began this series with the unifying dyad of love, which is the active power, grounded in wisdom, which is the supporting power. And we've looked at the presence dyad of life, which is centered in the supporting renunciation. Last week, we took a look at our stabilizing dyad. Strength being the active part of that dyad, and that strength is grounded in order. And so even though I didn't get anybody to send me in how you've been practicing this, I'm trusting that you are. So how did you put into practice that stabilizing dyad, becoming aware of where perhaps your life or your actions were out of order so that you could bring order into your life consciously, and then from that we gain our strength. So keep working on that one. But today we are moving on. We are moving on to our executive dyad. Our executive dyad is based on will, which is our active part of the dyad, and that is grounded in understanding. And so it's kind of interesting because I have been studying these 12 powers for, I don't know, I guess since 2001, something like that. And each time I make my way through, I get a deeper understanding of what those powers are. But we were having a conversation in our Zoom room this week, and I was admitting that that power of understanding is one that's just been a little elusive to me. I've always resonated with the idea that understanding is knowing that God is standing under it all, but it just felt a little shallow to me, like I needed to take it deeper. And so I have been working this week to open up my understanding on what that power of understanding is, because it is understanding that supports us in grounding so that we can make the choice through our will. So to begin, I'd like to just share with you a couple of sentences here from the book, The 12 Freedoms, that was written by Phil Pearson. And this is what Phil has to say about these faculties of will and understanding. The faculty of will is our ability to determine what we intend to take place or happen in our lives. Will is often referred to as willpower because a developed will faculty has learned to use the power of reflective thought in such a focused way. We were ideated by God to have and use personal willpower. We never want less will. We want an educated will. An undeveloped will usually goes hand in hand with an inability to focus energy. We were given our understanding faculty to use our will faculty in an understanding way, one that would harmonize us with our world and our other faculties. Understanding is a storehouse of intellectual knowledge and experience that gives us the ability to comprehend what the right action should be in almost every case when we use our will. So those are some ideas that Phil Pearson gives us about the powers of will and understanding from the 12 freedoms. And so thank you, Phil Pearson, for those. So here's what caught my eye. And I'm going to start with that stabilizing faculty of understanding. Understanding is a storehouse of intellectual knowledge and experience. So Phil talks about, I haven't gone into great depth. Each of the powers has a location in our body center. There's only so much time, so I haven't gone into great detail about any of that. But when we go back to love and wisdom, those unifying dyads, they are located in our heart center. So wisdom, that ability to discern, is, in Phil's words, more of an intuitive knowing. So intuitive from our heart knowing. But these two faculties of understanding and will take place from our head, from our executive faculties. And so it is a knowledge, not an intuition, but a knowledge based on our experiences in life. So I took that idea and really thought about that idea this week to help me to understand understanding in a new way. So in my thoughts about this, I was thinking about 40 some years ago when I started to drive. Probably you remember when you learned how to drive and how much active thought it took as you were learning to drive. Because, of course, we were building those neural pathways in our brain of what it meant to drive, right? So there was a lot of attention placed on doing everything the way we were supposed to do it. And let me remember to look in my mirror, and let me remember to turn on my turn signal, and, whoa, time to put on the brakes. But there was a lot of conscious energy that had to go into driving as we were learning to drive. Now that's been over 40 years, and in that time I have come to understand what it means to drive in many situations and in many circumstances. I have driven heavy traffic during rush hour. I have driven in a snowstorm. I have driven through a rainstorm. I've driven in beautiful sunny weather. I've driven through mountains. I've driven through deserts. You know, lots of opportunities and experiences in driving. And so now when I get behind my wheel, it's not like I have to consciously think about what do I need to do first, and then second, and then third, like I might have had to do before I gained that understanding about driving. So as I've thought about this, I thought, okay, so understanding comes with experience. As I have experiences in my life, I gain deeper understanding. Now, you know that all of these powers are used all the time. So I am using my power of understanding based upon my experiences all the time. Now, here's my question, because here we are in the middle of this worldwide pandemic, an experience that I know I have never gone through in my lifetime, and I'm guessing you have never gone through an experience like this in your lifetime. As a humanity, we have never gone through an experience like this in our lifetime. So as I've thought about understanding, and understanding is based on experience, then where do I find understanding when I'm going through something that I have never gone through before? What does that look like? So I have taken a breath and I have realized that in my life I may not have understanding about a COVID-19 worldwide pandemic, but I have in my life had experiences in which I experienced mystery, the unknown, where my life has been out of the order of the usual, right? Like there's some chaos and there's some confusion and there's some I don't know where this is heading sort of thing. So while I've never been in the midst of this, I have been in the midst of experiences like this. And so I can draw my understanding from those experiences. So I recognize, since I'm always using understanding, that understanding can come from a place of fear, of separation, of worry, of concern, of needing to know, of needing to be in control, all of those things. My understanding can come from that as I've gone through experiences in that way. Or my understanding can come from the remembering, like James Dillett Freeman spoke about in his poem, I Am There. So James Dillett Freeman wrote that poem at a time when his wife was dying, and he didn't know what to do with all of his thoughts and all of his feelings and all of his questions about where is God in this, right? And he got still, and in his understanding, he came up with this remembering that even though you can't see me, I'm there. Even though you can't hear me, I am there. Even though, these are the lines that got to me. I am at work, though you do not recognize my ways. I am at work, though you do not recognize my works. So I can gain understanding from the remembering of past experiences that have been a little chaotic, a little tumultuous. I can gain understanding of how did I walk through those times, remembering that God was walking through these times with me. So I can be centered, my will in fear, worry, doubt, concern, control, manipulation, or I can ground my will in understanding of oneness, that God is here, that there is a divine answer, that divine ideas are always flowing, that there is nowhere that God is not, that I am not in this alone, that God is here. I am there. I have a choice which understanding I am going to use to center myself in. So I'm going to center myself in the understanding that although I have never been through a worldwide pandemic, God is here walking through it with me. that wisdom of the divine is guiding my way, that love is harmonizing it and drawing it all together, that I can choose where to focus my attention and let go of those ideas of fear and worry and doubt, and that I can have strength as I continue to order my life in ways in which I put God first, so that I can remember this. I can then be strengthened. So this is where I'm going to focus my understanding. And then the power of will is centered in that understanding and now has the power to choose. So I'm sure you can recognize, if my understanding is focused in fear and worry and doubt, then the choices that I make are going to come from fear and worry and doubt. If my understanding is one of oneness, of possibility, of harmony, and I make the choices from there, my actions will be much different, much more harmonized, much more peaceful, much more centered. So where we have our understanding determines those choices that we make, which is our faculty of will. We always have a choice. You and I always have a choice. We can change our mind. We can change our mind. We are the thinker thinking the thoughts. So if the thoughts are not grounded in an understanding of God, of faith, of love, of harmony, of power, we can choose our mind. We can choose our mind and choose to center there. So, some thoughts that I need to share with you today as spiritual leader for this community, because you know what? Just like I have never been through a worldwide pandemic, I have never led spiritual community through a worldwide pandemic. So what does that look like? And what does that mean? How do I ground myself in understanding so that choices can be made for our community that are in harmony with love, with wisdom, with light? We can make choices from either place, remember. So we have received guidelines that lots of things are opening up again. And perhaps you're wondering, well, when will Unity Spiritual Center be opening up again, now that we can start getting our hair cut and go to the dentist and be out and about a little bit more? Are we going to be gathering in community again, in Unity Spiritual Center again? And I have to tell you that it has been so challenging because there are so many opposing ideas. This virus is such that they've only just started to study it and to understand it, right? So our experience of this particular virus is very new, and we don't know how it is acting and reacting with us. So there's that. And so from that, as human beings trying to understand, there are so many confusing messages about what we should be doing or what we shouldn't be doing. Should we be masking, not masking, meeting, not meeting? And you hear all the different voices, and we have to make decisions. And what do we ground our decision in? And how do we make those choices? How do we hear beyond the mystery, right? I am not the mystery. So there has to be some clarity there that we can ground ourselves in to make these choices. So the board of trustees and myself have decided to ground our understanding on what science, what the data is showing us right here, right now, rather than on all of those opposing voices that tell us what we should be, even our longing from our heart that says, yes, let's gather together again. Let's go back, step back to that greater understanding of what experience is showing us. So there are a couple of things that have grounded me in this choice and grounded our board in this choice. Number one is the way that the virus spreads. So more and more is coming to be understood about that. And what we're finding is that when we are in an enclosed space, sharing that same air for an extended period of time, the chance of our being exposed to and perhaps contracting the virus is increased. And so therefore, when we come into a building, especially as we get warmer and the air conditioning is going to start flowing that air, and we're now all together in this building breathing that air, it just increases the chances of that virus then moving through our community. That's number one. The second thing that has grounded me in my understanding is the knowing, the facts that are coming out, that one of the places where these outbreaks begin is in spiritual community. It's in church as we all come together and worship together in an enclosed space, breathing that same air. It increases the likelihood that again, virus is spread be in that community and then beyond that community. So those are two of the understandings that I am grounding in. Now hear me, that understanding is not coming from fear. It is not coming from worry. It is coming from love and harmony and openness to what are the facts saying in this moment and how can we best serve one another in love. So for that reason, the Board of Trustees, along with myself, have decided that we're going to hold back yet on opening Unity Spiritual Center. We're going to wait until we see in Cuyahoga County that the numbers have consistently been decreasing over that 2-week period. Those are the guidelines that we've been given. Those are the guidelines that some are choosing to not be grounded in, but because of these other reasons, we are choosing to ground in them. And while we know that everybody wants to come together, everybody wants to be back in community, be back in Unity Hall, for right now, we are inviting you to just ground yourself in the understanding that these decisions are being made with love, with wisdom, discerning what to give life to, what to release, what to gain strength from, and in gratitude that we continue to have these ways to be connecting with one another. So I trust that you will understand that decision that is made by our Board of Trustees and myself. And together we hold the vision that when we can ground in the fact that the virus appears to be lessened here in this area, now it feels like we can start coming back together. And then what does that look like? Because there's lots of decisions to be made around that as well. So, what are you grounding your understanding in during this particular time? Are you grounding it in the remembering that, as James Dillett Freeman says, God is there, that God is here guiding us, loving through us, acting through us, lighting itself through us? Or are you grounded in fear, in worry, in doubt, in victimhood, in blame, in whatever the prevailing human consciousness thoughts are around this time, which, to be honest with you, are so confusing and simply add to the chaos of this time? Let's ground in God. Let's ground in truth. Let's do our best to ground in facts and make our decisions from there. So I got to keep practicing because this is not easy stuff, especially when we're going through something we've never gone through before. So we have a practice for this particular time. And our practice is, of course, to take some time to contemplate this dyad, the executive dyad that takes place, by the way, in the reasoning portion of our brain, not our reptile brain that is about, flight or fight or freeze, but the reasoning part of our brain, the conscious part of our brain. So we take the time to meditate upon this dyad of will and understanding, taking the time to consider, where have you given up the power to choose? So think about those daily habits where you don't even think about it. You just do them, but you're not consciously choosing to do them. Think about those daily habits and ask yourself the question, are those daily habits grounded in my understanding of the truth? And from that deepened understanding, ask yourself, are there different choices that I could make today that would more fully reveal that unique and individualized expression of God that you are? Let's practice this together, grounding in understanding, and then recognizing from that understanding, I can make wise, harmonious, loving choices because I have the power to choose. And I choose to base my choices on faith, on love, on God. In the beginning, God. Let's go back there. So that is my talk for you for today. And listen, I really do want to hear from you. How are you putting these ideas into practice? Send me an email, revjoanne@unityspiritualcenter.com, and let me know what you are doing to practice these spiritual principles during this time so we can inspire and encourage one another in this time.